that's a great segue straight into sort of these best team spots and fits that we have for some of these offensive linemen. Because one of them, for me, was Armand Membu going to the Jets. And I already talked about how much I love it and the reasons why there, as we were talking about Jack's Link's duos. But as a Jets fan, how do you feel about Armand Membu potentially being the pick for them at number 7, and then that tackle duo of Olu Fashanu and Membu?
I get it, because you're talking about completing a potentially really good offensive line. Fashanu, Simpson, Tittman, Vera Tucker, and then Membu. I mean, and of course, what would Aaron Glenn and Tanner Engstrand want more than that? What they built in Detroit, and likely a lot quicker if you had those 5 guys.
It feels like a butt is coming here, and I need to hear what's the butt here.
The question strategically is, who in the world is catching the football? Because you've got
Armand Membu can't.
You have. I mean, if that's the case, I mean, he showed he's a good enough athlete probably to do so. I mean, he'd probably be our best tight end right now too. But you have Garrett Wilson, and then you have Josh Reynolds, Alan Lazard, Xavier Gibson, Malachi Corley, and really not much in the tight end room at all. It's Jeremy Ruckert and Stone Smart, and that's the part where I think about if Teteroa McMillan were on the board. If assuming Tyler Warren's on the board, do the Jets have enough weaponry to really supercharge this offensive line like that? Or could they go later in the draft and go Ozzie Trapilo or Jonas Savainea or somebody else who could at least capably fill in that spot, as opposed to trying to have maybe look, if you have the best offensive line in football a year from now, I wouldn't complain about that either, because that's a good base and then you build around it. But the only thing for me is it feels like if you're drafting Membu, you have to go weapons probably on day 2, right? Rounds 2 and 3. I think about a guy like Jaden Higgins I think would fit in if they want a slot receiver. Obviously, they may try to develop something out of Malachi Corley, who barely even played last year. And then at tight end, I really don't know what they're doing right now. I have no idea. Right now, it looks like one of the worst tight end groups in football. It was already the 3rd worst last season per our grading. So I think that is going to be the balance of, okay, you can lock in this offensive line, you better find some weapons, or you're going to be in 13 personnel running the ball every single play with Breece Hall, with Braylon Allen, with Justin Fields. And now there's even some other trade rumors happening with Breece Hall that call into question what might be going on with the draft strategy even in the first round. So there's a lot going on, and I've really looked at this Jets pick at 7 as the first one where I truly don't really know what's going to happen.
I think it's much easier to get a pass catcher than it is an offensive tackle that you feel great about. So I still love it. That's why I picked it. Who is your first best team fit and prospect that you want to bring?
Yeah, if he gets there at number 9, I think you go low moving costs. I think you get Will Campbell to the New Orleans Saints. Look, they were last in the league in pass blocking grade this year. They've been 26 or worse in 3 straight seasons. They can't pass protect.
Are you kicking Fuaga back to right tackle?
However they want to do it, and this is the fun of Will Campbell, like we were talking about before. If you want to put Campbell straight up at at left guard, you could just plug him in at left guard. Cool. If you wanted to put Campbell at right tackle and move Penning inside and figure it out there, because Trevor Penning, I just doubt that he's going to be able to pass protected tackle long term. We just haven't seen it through 2 years. Or you could go Penning inside, Talisi Fuaga back to right tackle, where he played his whole career at college at Oregon State, and Will Campbell at left tackle, and you just rebuild it that way. However you want to do it, Campbell gives you the flexibility to do it. But they need more talent. That's not a question. They need a better base in pass protection. Again, 26 or worse, 7th worst, or even worse than that in 3 straight years. They cannot win with their offensive line the way it is, and they can't win with the defensive line the way it is. So they either have to build in the trenches or they're not going to get anywhere. And I know there's been talk about, say, a quarterback, if Shedeur Sanders were to fall to them at 9, maybe because he would sit behind Derek Carr for a year, but you're still awful in the trenches. And we've already seen it. Shedeur probably doesn't want to get hit as much as he did at Colorado. I think for the Saints, it's got to be a trench pick either way. And if it's the offensive line, hope that Will Campbell is there, because he gives you the flexibility and the talent to be able to align that offensive line however you want to.
I don't hate the idea of it. I really don't. I am much less inclined to continue to allow Trevor Penning to play offensive tackle than others. I think that you can absolutely kick him inside because you already have a guard spot that you don't love, and that's including with Cesar Ruiz playing another guard spot who has struggled. So you like McCoy, I like Fuanga, but if you kick Penning inside and you let Will Campbell play one of the other offensive tackle spots, then at least I feel great about Fuanga, Will Campbell, and Eric McCoy. You can replace the guards, and they won't this year. They'll kick Penning inside. They'll let Cesar Ruiz stay there because he's got a lot of continuity continuity there. But with Kellen Moore coming in, it's sort of the perfect time to be able to do that. It's a brand new coaching staff. You're teaching guys a different sort of run game, and it's just new coaches in the building. So I think they do have that flexibility there. I think Will Campbell, one of my fits is, I want to shout out, and I see people in the chat, by the way, talking about their sleeper offensive linemen. We will get to them in a second because I want to make sure that I shout out some of the guys that you guys are pointing out in the chat. I love Will Campbell for the San Francisco 49ers, right? I mean, if you draft Will Campbell, they've got Colt McKivitz on one side, they've got Trent Williams on the other. They're losing Aaron Banks. They've got Jake Brendel. They have Dominic Puni, who played great last year, but you could put Will Campbell in at left guard immediately. Like, he could play next to Trent Williams for you, and then for however much longer Trent Williams plays, Will Campbell might be able to take over at left tackle once Trent Williams is done. If you don't like how Colt McKivitz is playing at right tackle and you think you could upgrade that spot with Will Campbell, then you can kick him out. And if you're, a year from now, if you find a guard that you really like, you could make that switch if you wanted to. But Campbell, most importantly, has the athleticism, which we saw at the combine, to be able to play in Shanahan's versatile run scheme, but mainly one that will ask you to play and block mid and outside zone. Like, I think that he has the quickness, he has the IQ, he's got the leverage, he understands how to play those things very, very well. So I think this is a scheme fit, this is a short-term fit, and this is a long-term fit. You mentioned if Will Campbell can get to number 9 for the Saints, if he could get to number 11 for the San Francisco 49ers, just going through the team top 100 big boards, man, offensive line is just like the need for this team, in my opinion. They need a starter at guard. They could use an upgrade at right tackle, maybe. If they can find it in the first round, I think that you would consider that an upgraded offensive tackle. And then you need a long-term what happens after Trent Williams is done plan. Like, they really need offensive line in San Francisco as much as they need defensive line as well. So if they have the chance to take Will Campbell, I think he is perfect for them. I really do.
See, this is the fun one with the Niners, because I think you're right. He has the athleticism that he could probably do it. But I don't actually have the tape of him running those outside zone schemes because LSU just didn't do it. Whereas I've been plugging Armand Membu into the 49ers in a lot of my mocks, in replacing McKivitz at right tackle. If they want to move him over eventually when Trent Williams retires, just like Tristan Wirfs did with the Bucks, you could try that eventually, or you just maybe have a potentially great all-time great right tackle like the Eagles do with Lane Johnson. Either way, I that's where I've been going, because with Membu, I have that on tape at Missouri. Even with Kelvin Banks, I have that on tape at Texas, where he would absolutely just seamlessly fit in. I don't have it on tape with Campbell. I don't doubt that he's accurate. That he's athletic enough or that he's smart enough to do it. I'm sure he could do it. I do wonder, though, if the question with Campbell would then be, does he play left guard instead of tackle? Do they leave McKivitz out there? Because right now, they have a gaping hole at left guard. I don't know who's filling that right now, but it's obviously, you mentioned Aaron Banks went to Green Bay, and they need something there. So maybe it's more likely that Campbell plays left guard in that scenario. Kind of depends what Kyle Shanahan thinks of him. But I've been getting Membu to the Niners in these mocks lately. If Campbell is sitting there, I'm sure they would think about it. Kind of depends on how scheme versatile they think he is.
Yeah, again, Trent Williams line up next to Will Campbell with Jake Brendel at center, Dominic Puni at right guard, Colt McKivitz at right tackle. That sounds a lot better than I think what we saw from this unit last year. Okay, who's the next guy, the next player team fit you want to talk about here?
I'll stay in that same group of those top tackles, and another guy that I've been mentioning a lot. Somebody I already obviously really like. Look, if Kelvin Banks Jr. is there for the Miami Dolphins, take him. Run the card in. Don't waste 10 minutes of our time. Just take Kelvin.
Especially with Teron Armstead retiring, man.
Yeah, now that's official, yeah.
In my opinion, like, we're getting too cute with mock drafts for the Dolphins. Like, safety, defensive tackle, like all the dude, draft the O-lineman, man. You're going to have a really good one available for you, whether it's Membu, whether it's Kelvin Banks Jr., whether it's, whoever. Like, there will not be enough good offensive linemen off the board by the time you come up at 13. Like, I just think this has to be an offensive lineman for the Miami Dolphins.
It's the two things you need. You need a pass protection base, because you don't have it right now, especially on the left side. And you need Shanahan-style blocking, and it's exactly what you get out of Kelvin Banks. That's all he did at Texas under Steve Sarkisian. That's it. I think it's end of story that if either Membu or Banks, I think Banks more likely, is on the board for the Dolphins, just take him. Just do it. Just take him. And if Banks, if you feel like Patrick Paul's your guy at left tackle, then replace Liam Eichenberg at left guard. That might even be the ideal scenario. If Banks can play guard and he's just as good next to Paul and next to Aaron Brewer and he raises the floor on pass protection for Tua. Because look, if you take a corner, a safety, or a D lineman, something like that, Tua's not any more protected. And if Tua's not protected, nothing really matters for this team if he keeps getting hurt. It doesn't matter. Kelvin Banks, 13th overall. I think I'm just going to stick to it the next 17 days because there's really, to me, no other pick that should be made unless Membu were on the board or one of the other two guys were on the board for any reason. This has to be an offensive lineman. I think Banks is the most likely of the three to be there for them.
Solensi's giving us a super chat. Already getting to the sleepers, but I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss this, so I'm going to shout it out. Said, wanted to give a shout out to Lucas Scott out of Army. Saw he was at the pro day, but didn't know if he was in the draft. Very good run blocker that can contain the outside as well. Late day 3 swing offensive tackle, hand up. Haven't watched a snap of him. However, after reading this and looking it up on PFF Ultimate, 90.5 offensive grade thanks to a 88.6 run blocking grade on 807 total snaps that we had this season because of how much Army ran the football. That's 676 run blocking snaps, and he had an 88.6 run blocking grade. Whereas I'm looking at the plus and minus here. I'm waiting for it to load, just trying to give you guys as much information as possible since I have not watched it.
And I'll tell you this, that Army team was really good this year, and their offensive line actually won the Joe Moore Award with Lucas Scott leading the way there.
Right.
That's a really good football player, Trevor. Look, the question's going to be pass protection because we know they throw 5 to 8 times a game, right? But you talk about maulers in that triple option that they were running. Lucas Scott is a mauler. That might be somebody on day 3 that gets thought about, if he's athletic enough, obviously. And sometimes, it comes with a lack of size coming from the academies, but those guys have been getting bigger in recent years, and they mauled people this year all across college football. They were nasty.
Yeah, good shout out from Solensi, who also says Kelvin Banks and a swing on Marcus Bowe as an interior offensive lineman would be ideal for Miami. I do not hate the idea of Miami double dipping at offensive linemen in this draft. I really don't. They have a first-round pick, second-round pick, third-round compensatory pick because they don't have theirs, but they have a compensatory pick there. 2 4th-rounders, 2 5th-rounders, and then 3 7th-rounders. Absolutely, they're drafting more than one offensive lineman in this class. I really like the idea of them drafting Marcus Bowe. I don't know if they would do it at 48. That's the tough part for me is, does he last until 98? Probably not. And then you probably got to package a couple of picks to try to jump up in the 60s, 70s to draft Marcus Bowe. If I'm just sort of reading the tea leaves of where he might be drafted, I really don't think that he is going to last all the way to the fringe top 100 pick there at the very end. But I do like that idea. I think both of those guys are scheme fits for them for Miami. So just wanted to shout that out too. Last guy that I'll talk about as a team fit. So I'm going to go to the Baltimore Ravens. You talked about Tyler Booker. I actually like Donovan Jackson just as much, I think, for the Baltimore Ravens because I have so much faith in how he played this past season and how much, in my opinion, he raised his floor with what he was able to not only show at left tackle when Josh Simmons went down for the season, but also, you mentioned it, they started playing a lot of man and gap run block or run scheme concepts as the year went on, and I thought that Donovan Jackson played them pretty well. And so when I was doing the team top 100 big boards, I was surprised that the Ravens weren't a higher percentage in that man and gap run blocking in those man and gap run blocking plays. It was right around 50-50. Now, inside zone sometimes looks like duo, right? So it's like, okay, the properties are kind of the same when you're running inside zone, especially when it's a very condensed inside zone offensive line setup that you have before the snap. But I think that Donovan Jackson gives you that versatility to be able to play those between the tackles duo plays that you want. Maybe not as well as Tyler Booker, but still well enough. And then when you do want to switch it up and get to those mid and maybe outside zone plays, he then has the athleticism to be able to do that. So I actually like Donovan Jackson as just as much of a fit for the Ravens, maybe even more than Tyler Booker, although, of course, the pass protection stuff goes into it as well with the pluses for Booker. But we often just say, oh yeah, Tyler Booker for the Ravens. If they're drafting an offensive lineman, it's going to be Tyler Booker no matter what. I think Donovan Jackson's in that conversation too. And the more that I looked it up and said, okay, they were a little bit more even in how much they run man and zone run blocking concepts than I thought. I think the versatility of what Donovan Jackson brings could actually fit there in Baltimore as well.
Yeah, I think and part of that was an adjustment for Derrick Henry too, because that's what he had runs for so many years in Baltimore and in Tennessee. And you could see early in the year they were kind of tweaking and adjusting. How do we want to run the football? What's Henry most comfortable with? What's Lamar Jackson most comfortable with? But at the end of the day, Trev, you bring in good offensive linemen, you can run anything. So I think either one would be a fit. I think Donovan Jackson's one of those guys with enough versatility and just the high floor level of play that he has. He's actually maybe the offensive lineman that I feel the most that could help the most of the 32 teams in the NFL. So I think it's a good call. I think Jackson, he would fit there. The only question with him is I'm not as sure that they would take him at 27. I just wonder if they would try to wait for him or maybe trade up in the second round for him. I don't know if they would take him that high, but if that's your guy, and you go ahead and take him and you plug him in there at left guard.
I think it was Mr. Super J was talking about like, hey, do you have any other quick hitters, like team fits on some of these players?
I got one more if you want to go with.
Oh yeah, I forgot you got one more. Yeah, shout it out. Let's go.
Yeah, a guy that whether I do a 1-round mock, 2-round mock, I think I got him here in our 3-round mock with myself and Max Chadwick last week while you were busy down there in the Bahamas. Gray Zabel. I've been shoehorning Gray Zabel into the Seattle Seahawks somehow, some way in every mock draft I do. I think it's perfect. I think for Clint Kubiak's system, whether you want him at guard or at center, they've got all 3 spots to figure. You got an open competition at all 3 spots, and if Gray Zabel is in there, he's going to win one of those 3 spots. I'm just not sure which. Either way, when you talk about Clint Kubiak, zone blocking, I need athletic interior blockers who can get after it. Christian Haynes might be one of those guys. Maybe Sato Alamea is one of those guys, but I think Gray Zabel in Seattle, I don't know if they would pick him at 18. If they would trade down from 18, they're picking 50 and 52. A lot of times what I've been doing in these mock drafts is getting them up from number 50 a little bit higher to get into a better range for Zabel because they got 2 picks in round 2 and 2 in round 3. I think this is a player that Seattle really needs to target. I think this is the guy that you start this interior offensive line with. You obviously have him as the top interior guy in this draft. If they were to even come out, I would say either with a receiver, edge player, or corner with that 18th pick and then find a way to trade up from 50 or 52 to get Zabel, I think they would really be living all of a sudden, and Seattle's building a really nice draft. But every time I do a mock draft right now, I'm finding a way to get Gray Zabel out to Seattle.
Yeah, I think that Jared Wilson from Georgia, also somebody that very much fits what Seattle's going to want to do. His teammate, Tate Ratledge, as well, just given what Clint Kubiak did last year with his zone scheme.